Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
I adjusted the name tag on my blazer, Ophelia Rains. It wasn't my real name, of course, but no one in this building needed to know that. Not yet. The lobby of Simpson Enterprises was as I remembered it from my childhood. Towering marble pillars, glass walls reflecting the morning sun, and the sharp, hurried steps of employees who barely spared me a glance. But today, I wasn't the CEO's daughter. I was just another hopeful intern. Miss Rains. A woman in a tight gray suit, clipboard in hand, barely looked up as she called my fake name. Yes, that's me, I replied, masking the confidence I'd been raised with. Her eyes flickered over me, unimpressed. Follow me, quickly. I trailed behind her, the clicking of her heels echoing like gunfire in the vast hallway. I had expected some level of resistance, but as we reached the HR office, I felt something shift in the air. 3 senior executives stood near the desk, speaking in hushed voices. The moment they saw me, their conversation halted. So this is the new trainee? One of them scoffed. Gregory Tate, the vice president of operations, a man whose arrogance was almost as legendary as his cruelty to subordinates. He leaned back against the desk, arms crossed. Looks like she's already in over her head. The woman beside him, Madeleine Royce, the head of finance, barely contained her smirk. She won't last a week. I remained silent, letting them underestimate me. It was safer that way. Let's not waste time, the HR manager, Mrs. Ellis, interjected. She handed me a folder, her tone clipped. Your responsibilities have been outlined. You'll assist wherever needed. And remember, this program isn't for the faint of heart. I took the folder, flipping through pages filled with an overwhelming list of tasks. It was absurd. Filing, running errands, coordinating reports, assisting with executive schedules. It was 3 jobs in one. Tate chuckled. Consider it a test, kid. We don't hand out opportunities here. You earn them. Madeleine tapped her manicured nails on the desk. Or break under the pressure. The challenge in her tone sent a surge of adrenaline through me. They wanted me to fail. That was their first mistake. The office buzzed with the usual morning chaos. Phones ringing, printers humming, hurried footsteps on polished floors. I sat at my tiny desk in the corner, drowning in a sea of paperwork. The assignments Tate and Madeleine had thrown at me were beyond excessive. Budget reports, inventory tracking, client correspondence, tasks meant for 3 people, not one underpaid trainee. That was the game. Break the intern before she even starts. I wasn't breaking. I cracked my knuckles and got to work. By lunchtime, I had streamlined the chaotic budget sheets into a flawless digital report. By evening, I had cross-checked inventory logs, catching discrepancies no one else had noticed. The more I excelled, the colder the atmosphere became. I heard the whispers. How the hell did she finish that so fast? She's making us look bad. She must be cheating. At exactly 7:12 p.m., Tate stormed toward my desk, his face thunderous. He slammed a file onto the surface, making my coffee tremble. You've been here a week, he growled, and somehow you're performing at a level beyond our junior executives. His voice was edged with suspicion. Explain. I met his glare, my expression neutral. I work efficiently. Madeleine sauntered over, arms crossed. Or you're cutting corners. No trainee should be this competent. My fingers curled into fists beneath the desk. They didn't expect skill. They expected submission. I slid the report toward them. Check the numbers yourself. Every detail is accurate. Tate's jaw tensed. Fine. But if I find one mistake, you're done. His threat didn't rattle me, but the warning in his eyes did, because it wasn't just about proving myself anymore. Now, they wanted me gone. The conference room smelled of expensive coffee and tension. I moved quietly, balancing a tray of refreshments, keeping my head down as if I were invisible. It was a routine board meeting, the kind where executives puffed their chests and spoke in riddles. But tonight, something was different. Richard has no idea, a low voice murmured. I froze mid-step. Tate leaned forward, his tone hushed yet sharp. We've siphoned enough funds through the shell accounts. The reports are clean. Hell never trace it back. My pulse thundered. Fraud? Madeleine smirked, tapping her manicured nails against the table. And what about the new intern? She's getting too smart for her own good. Tate scoffed. A nobody. We'll drown her in work until she quits. I swallowed hard, forcing my hand steady as I set down the coffee. They didn't just want me gone. They were hiding something bigger. I backed out of the room, my mind racing. If they were stealing from my father, I needed proof. That night, I stayed late, combing through files in the dim office light. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through digital transactions, and there it was, millions funneled into offshore accounts. A sharp sound behind me. I turned. Madeline stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Her smile sent a chill down my spine. Working late, are we? She mused. That's dangerous. I forced a smile, just trying to keep up. She tilted her head, eyes dark. Be careful, dear. You wouldn't want to make enemies in the wrong places. As she walked away, I exhaled shakily. I was in over my head, but there was no turning back now. The stolen money wasn't just sitting in offshore accounts. It was alive, moving like a shadow through falsified contracts and ghost vendors. Every transaction I uncovered made my stomach twist. They were bleeding my father's company dry. I knew if I went directly to him now, Tate and Madeline would bury the evidence before he could act. I had to dismantle them from within. The first move was subtle. I left an anonymous tip with a junior accountant about inconsistencies in vendor payments. Within days, the finance department was buzzing, whispers growing louder. Why were millions allocated to non-existent consulting firms? The cracks had begun to form. But that wasn't enough. I needed them to turn on each other. Madeline, I said one evening, catching her outside her office. Tate's been acting strange. I overheard him in a call, something about making sure he got his share first, before the company crumbled. She stiffened. What? I shrugged, feigning concern. Maybe I misheard, but he was worried someone might try to throw him under the bus first. Her lips pressed into a thin line. That was all I needed. By the following week, paranoia had set in. Tate started checking over financial reports with a frantic urgency. Madeline began shifting blame in private conversations, whispering to others that Tate must have mismanaged the accounts. They thought they had a loyal circle, but I watched as alliances fractured. Then, I delivered the final blow. At the next board meeting, I waited outside as the executives gathered, their tension palpable. Moments before the session began, I sent an anonymous email to all of them. Attached were key files, bank transactions, forged invoices, and leaked emails, all pointing fingers in different directions. The subject line was simple. Who will take the fall first? The explosion was immediate. Madeline's voice cut through the room. You set me up. Tate shot up from his chair. Me? You've been signing off on everything. Accusations flew, voices rising. The other executives, once silent accomplices, now fought to distance themselves from the inevitable downfall. Then, the doors opened. My father walked in, his presence commanding silence. His assistant whispered something into his ear, handing him a tablet. He scrolled, eyes darkening as he took in the damning evidence. Would anyone like to explain? His voice was low, measured. Why I just received these? No one spoke. That was the moment the purge began. The empire was falling, and I was the one who set it in motion. The fallout from the first wave of dismissals sent tremors through the company. Executives whispered in break rooms, glancing over their shoulders like hunted prey. But I wasn't done yet. Late one evening, I sat in my dimly lit office, poring over financial statements, my fingers trembling slightly as I uncovered a second layer of deception. Bribes disguised as consulting fees, accounts manipulated to siphon off millions. The name behind the transactions made my breath hitch. Gregory Wilkes, the COO. A rustling outside my office door made me tense. Someone was there. I flicked off my screen, my pulse hammering. The doorknob turned slightly. I grabbed my phone, ready to record, when a voice whispered, Ophelia, let me in. It was Daniel, the company's legal advisor and one of the few I still trusted. He slipped inside, shutting the door quickly. You're running out of time. Wilkes is cornered and desperate men make reckless moves. I exhaled sharply, then I need to move faster. The next morning, I walked into the boardroom, a flash drive in my pocket containing damning evidence. The tension was thick, Wilkes sitting at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. I leaned forward. Let's talk about your off-the-books transactions, shall we? His face turned pale, but before he could deny it, I slid the flash drive across the table. You have two choices: resign quietly, or I make this public. A long silence stretched between us before he let out a slow breath and stood, his jaw clenched. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I met his gaze without flinching. And you underestimated what I'm capable of. After Wilkes's departure, the company felt like a ship rocking in the wake of a storm. Unstable, uncertain, waiting for the next wave. But I wasn't finished yet. With each passing day, I tightened the noose around the remaining conspirators. Secretly recorded calls, tampered balance sheets, and falsified contracts. The evidence piled up like a noose around their necks. One by one, they fell. By the time the fifth executive was escorted out of the building, the tension that had suffocated the offices for years finally lifted. Employees whispered my name in corridors, some with admiration, others with fear. The Harris had become the executioner. That evening, my father called me into his office. The man who once dismissed my ambitions now watched me with something unreadable in his gaze. Finally, he spoke. You've done what I couldn't, Ophelia. A pause. The company needs leadership. I want you to take over as VP of operations. A cold weight settled in my chest. I had fought to tear down corruption. But could I rebuild what was left? Doubt turned to resolve. I wouldn't just lead, I would transform. At first, resistance came in waves, investors questioning my capabilities. But results spoke louder than prejudice. Profits climbed. Employee satisfaction soared. 1 year later, when I walked into the boardroom, I wasn't just my father's daughter anymore. I was a leader.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.